Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this episode of G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert on May 9th, 2020. And yeah, you're looking at the clouds all through there. Well, I was just watching the news and weather, and apparently there's a disturbance coming up from Baja, Mexico, and moving across the inland area there. And they got some spotty thunderstorms and stuff like that going on out there in different places. And they're showing some lightning strikes out over in that direction, but can't see them from here. That's a little bit too far away. But yeah, the winds are really kicking up right now. You see the turbine up there doing its thing, but hey, what can I say? That's the desert for you. You don't like the weather? Just turn around twice with your eyes closed, open them back up. It'll be different. All right. So I found out what type of bird it was that was making that hee-hoo sound. Hee-hoo, 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 all night long. When the sun sets all the way until Brewster crows in the morning, non-stop, just like a barking dog. It never stopped in between. It was perfect timing. You could set a clock mechanism to it so that it would tick 1 second in between each hee-hoo. Well, I was out at the outhouse, and straight across over there, sitting on the bush, I heard the sound, and I saw something sitting on top of there, some type of a bird. So I went and got my high-powered binoculars, and I checked it out, and turns out it's what they call a burrowing owl. And it has a burrow, a nest burrow, right over there by, there's a bunch of old rabbit dens and rabbit burrows over there, and I guess this just took over one of them. But it's probably got a mate over there, or that call is to attract a mate or whatever. So anyway, a burrowing owl, Mojave burrowing owl is what it turned out to be. All right, so we're in here because had a couple of people who were interested in knowing what the name of this little jig tool was. Okay, well, I came out and looked, and there it is, right on there. GIZMO 32. So I looked that up on Google, and it sent me to Amazon.com, and they had a picture of it there, but it said, below the picture, it said, sold out, not sure when any more will come in. So I don't know if that'll help you, but if you do Google GIZMO 32, you will find this tool. Now, there's also a couple others. There's one that's black, that's made by a different company. I don't know if they bought GIZMO out or whatever and just made a different black one, or if the patent expired and another company took over. Then there's also another one that's a bigger unit and does the same thing. But if you Google GIZMO 32, hole drilling jig, I think it said on there, you'll find this unit. So I hope that helps those people that were interested and wanted to know what it was called. And I never even paid attention to that GIZMO 32 on there. I just bought it because of what it did, and I've used it for years and years. And because you're just drilling into soft wood most of the time, the drill bits last forever. I think if you're drilling metal, they wouldn't last as long. But anyway, that's where that comes from. All right, now one other neat little trick I'll show you. And you can use this in carpentry. You can use this if you're setting up a foundation for a cabin or a shed or something like that. And it's how do you get a nice square unit on the corners? Okay, if you don't have a big gigantic square, how are you going to get a square? Okay, there's a thing called the 3-4-5 method. Okay, so you can use those three numbers, 3, 4, 5, to make a square. And the way it works is, if you can use that for inches or feet, doesn't matter, or millimeters even if you wanted to, but as long as it's 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what happens is, if you go 3 down, let's say 3 feet down, and then you go 4 feet across, in order to make sure that this is a perfect 90 degrees, you'd measure from here to here. Now this angle is called a hypotenuse. Okay, so that would have to be exactly 5 inches from point to point, or 5 feet. 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. Now, if you had to go really big because you were putting in a really large barn or something like that, and you wanted to make sure that your walls were perfectly 90 degrees on the corner, then you could double these numbers and go 6, 8, 10. So 6, 8, 10 would give you the same exact square off. And the way it works is, if you figure out the hypotenuse of a circle, in order to do that, the mathematical equation is you square the first two numbers. So 3 times 3 would be 9. 4 times 4 is 16. You add those two together and you'll get 25. Then you take the square root of 25 is 5. So there you go. 3, 4, 5. All right. So I just wanted to show you that. It's a little tip that comes in handy when you're doing things. I don't have a square. How am I going to check to see if it's square? Well, you measure 3 feet down this side of the board, measure 4 feet down that side of the board, put a dot on both sides, and measure 5 feet across there. If it's 5 feet, it's a perfect 90. If it's not, if it's more than 5 feet, then you're too wide open and you have to close them together a little bit. If it's less than 5 feet, then you're too close together. You got to move those two sides out a little bit. All right. So just wanted to cover that. And on my way back to the cabin now, I'm going to say I've noticed that recently in the news, there's been a lot of stories about UFOs, and the Navy, the United States Navy, has released videos that purport to show UFOs that pilots, while flying on missions or training, whatever, saw UFOs and got them recorded on video. And they said the reason they actually released these videos was because they had already been leaked to the public. And I've seen them a long time ago. But if you go on and Google latest release of UFO videos, you'll see these videos. And there's a couple of people out there that are really getting on this because they're ufologists. And one of the things that I did notice was one guy has pictures that he downloaded from, I think it was the Apollo 9 mission. And it shows, in the photograph, it shows these really large UFOs passing in front of the moon. Well, the picture that you'll see if you see that one and you Google it will be exactly what I saw about a year ago right down there by the mountains. That's exactly the same thing I saw. And curious enough, they were saying that it passed by the moon. Well, guess where the moon comes up? Right there. Right where I saw that UFO last year. And you can look back in my videos and you'll find it there. So I think I had it as strange observances or something like that. But yeah, it's there. So you might want to check that out. And another thing I found curious about this release, instant release all of a sudden about UFOs during this crisis time with the virus, is that it's pretty interesting that they're also now, they've got ads on on TV about it, that maybe your purpose on Earth isn't actually on Earth. They started, Trump signed it in 2019. They started the Space Force. It'll be a detachment of the U.S. Air Force. And these guys are going to be flying around in space in these new fangled type of, well, I guess they almost look like the old shuttle, but they're a little bit more modern. And they'll be flying around space in those and guarding, apparently, this is what they said, guarding our satellites and other interests in space. Okay, now that's interesting. So anyway, you might want to look that stuff up. It's pretty interesting to see. And other than that, this is G-Bear reminding you, give me a thumbs up down there. It's time for a cold one. G-Bear signing off.